This week on the Evolve to Perform podcast, we had the CEO of MD Hyperbaric, Neal.
We discussed what hyperbaric therapy is,
Who hyperbaric therapy can benefit,
what you can expect if you go in for a session,
how PT and hyperbaric therapy can work together to get you back to doing what you love.
so grab your O2 masks and let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to the Evolve to Perform podcast, everyone. I'm Kingsley,
I'm Jordan.
and today we are so lucky to have the CEO of MD Hyperbaric, Chris, here with us. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. And first of all, guys, for context, Chris drove all the way from New Jersey, right? And so, being someone who's traveled across, states multiple times to see my family and other various things, I really do appreciate this because, first of all, tolls aren't cheap anymore.
That's right.
Right? It's crazy. And then, of course, the amount of time to come in like on a morning during the weekday is so I really appreciate that.
Of course. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So so we're gonna kind of jump right into this, right? We're here to talk about hyperbaric treatments, hyperbaric chambers, all that stuff, and who else to talk to about this but you? So we want to find out just like a little bit more about MD Hyperbaric, but just specifically just the treatment itself.
Yeah. Well, thanks for, first of all, having me on. Any opportunity to talk about hyperbaric, I'm just thrilled to get more education and awareness out there. I'll tell you a little bit about the origin story of hyperbaric and then MD Hyperbaric and how that is kind of transforming human health today in different areas.
Sure.
Hyperbaric oxygen therapy has been around for hundreds of years. It's kind of this, it's funny, I call it a 3-century overnight success. There's so many things that have been studied for a long period of time, wound care and all these different things that hyperbaric has been well known for. In the last 25 to 50 years, there's been this proliferation of research in many different facets of human health, from longevity, concussion research, chronic conditions, post-operative recovery. And it's a really exciting time in the hyperbaric industry because of how much research and focus is being done, and a lot of great advocacy from great ambassadors, athletes, and individuals who are seeing great outcomes. So the industry has moved kind of forward in a really accelerated way to the benefit of patients and consumers. And so MD Hyperbaric got started by our founder, Dr. Martin O'Malley, who's a very prominent orthopedic surgeon. He's a foot and ankle surgeon with HSS in New York City. And he sees a ton of professional athletes, and he would also often get asked by athletic trainers and athletes alike, saying, what do you think about doing a couple dives after surgery? And he's like, dives? What are you talking about, dives? And lo and behold, he did, as he is. He's a researcher at heart, and he did a lot of research into the benefits of hyperbaric. What is hyperbaric? It was being used a lot in Europe with professional football clubs. And he saw, wow, there's great data with this. There's great outcomes with this. And he got a chamber, set it up in his office. His athletes and patients were using it. And then the general public started, saying, can I do some dives? I've read about this, I've read about this. And before you know it, kind of grew a life of its own. Yeah. And so, 5 years later, he's has a thriving clinic that's provided amazing outcomes to different patients. And now we've since expanded to 13 clinics across the U.S. We'll be close to 30 by the end of the year.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. It's like, because for myself, like just growing up, like, being born in the 80s and then growing up during that time, the first time I heard about hyperbaric chambers was when Michael Jackson, apparently, right, was like an early adopter of this.
Yeah.
And I think during that time, first of all, MJ, right, he's a different type of person. So you're thinking like, wow, like, I don't know, is this really something that's going to be a legit thing? So for me, that's when I became a hyperbaric chamber aware. And and I'm thinking about this with the technology and things like that. So he was like actually ahead of his time understanding this. And it's almost like, it's even like virtual reality when it first came out too early on. It's like, well, this is kind of weird. We're never going to use this, or how do we implement this?
Yeah.
And then now we're actually like, we're much more open and receptive to this, just like the hyperbaric treatments itself,
Yeah, and I think, again, that kind of touches on the education and awareness gap that currently exists that's starting to get filled with more research, again, public figures with reputation that are coming out and kind of telling the truth about what the benefits and potential of hyperbaric is. Again, hyperbaric is FDA approved for 14 conditions. They're more critical care conditions you find in a hospital setting, but there are a number of off-label conditions that have gained a lot of traction and popularity. And certainly early adopters like Michael Jackson, even LeBron has talked openly about his hyperbaric use. And there are many, many athletes who have taken advantage of hyperbaric. And as with a lot of other methods and health technologies, it can kind of come from a exclusive, maybe inaccessible layer of society down to more of an accessible layer with more education, more access, and other things. And that's, I think, a big transformation that's starting to happen with hyperbaric.
Nice.
100%. So let's take it back a little bit for our viewers. I'm always like, I joke that I'm like the boots on the ground because I'm not a doctor and I'm not the CEO. So I did not know anything about hyperbaric anything until Kingsley was like, oh, let's meet up with these people and see if we can do a collaboration. So when I walked in and I saw these like huge chambers, I was like, whoa, that's not what I thought this was. So for the listeners that might be also on the same page as me, what exactly is hyperbaric therapy? Like, how would you describe it? What could someone expect if they wanted to maybe do a session?
Yeah, that's a great question. So let's break down the actual naming of hyperbaric. It's hyperbaric, which is increased hyper, baric, which is pressure. So it's increased pressure. That's the first fundamental element of hyperbaric. And then oxygen therapy. So there's an element of increased oxygen as well within the therapy. And so as you saw, it's a specialty chamber. It can either be a single person chamber or it can be a large room, which is called a multi-place chamber. When you get into the chamber, which are pretty roomy, like most people, they look at it and they're like, this seems kind of like claustrophobic, and which we can talk about. But once you actually get in there, experience it, it's a painless, non-invasive therapy. You're just relaxing and breathing normally. But the chamber itself is pressurized. In some cases with oxygen, in our case, it's pressurized with air, which is a much safer operation. And then when you're in there, you get to your prescribed depth. It often has some parallels to diving, right? You're increasing the pressure in the atmospheric pressure, and it's equivalent to seawater depth. And then while you're in there, you're breathing 100% oxygen through a mask. So that pressure and oxygen is what together is deriving the benefit for a whole host of different outcomes.
Got it. Okay. See, I didn't even know that. So good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, can you speak to a little bit about like the diving piece though? Because I mean, obviously, right? It's a lot. In my opinion, it's a lot easier to be in a chamber than diving. So like, what were some of those practices that were done maybe in other times?
Yeah, a lot of the origins of hyperbaric as well. I mentioned wound care, but even in diving, hyperbaric is still a very prominent intervention in the unfortunate situation with decompression sickness, where someone is getting the bends and they're coming up too quickly. They're building up a level of nitrogen in their body and their bloodstream that's unhealthy. And so they need to go into a hyperbaric chamber and introduce more oxygen into the bloodstream. So that's one of the FDA-approved uses of hyperbaric. But again, they've studied this main mechanism of increased pressure and oxygen and said, wow, this could have quite a benefit on just human cells and mitochondria health and all, stem cell proliferation, and all these different things, reduction of inflammation, that can help a range of health benefits. And so its origins in diving are still very true to its identity. And yeah, it's a similar sensation too for anybody who's ever gone diving to some depth where they have to equalize their ears or clear their ears, or if you go in a tunnel or in an airplane, you get that like fullness in your ears, and really that's the only sensation you're going to feel while you're in the chamber. Is you're just, as the pressure increases, you're going to be clearing your ears. Once you get to your prescribed pressure, it's like sitting in a room like this, and you're just breathing oxygen and you're relaxing, you're reading and napping, and different ways to relax.
Got it. Okay. And then you just said your prescribed pressure. So I'm assuming that before you even go in the chamber, you need to have some type of consultation with a doctor or something. Can you explain that process a little bit?
The entire process and how it works, it should be led by a physician. This is a prescriptive therapy as determined by the federal government. And so you have to have a physician who's reviewed your health history, make sure you're a qualified candidate for it, but then also is going to put together a personalized plan for your goals based on whatever your condition is or whatever your goals are. And so at MD Hyperbaric, what we do before you get started is you fill out an intake form with all your health history. we gather what your goals are, have a consultative discussion with our medical director, and then we get you onto a program to help meet those goals. We set expectations for the frequency, duration, and the pressure. And so the medical director will write a prescription for basically what your treatment not unlike physical therapy, where you have a goal in mind, you have maybe a timeline in mind, and here's the expert who's going to give you all the tools and resources to help make you successful towards that goal.
Got it.
Can you speak to a little bit about like what the benefits are, like who, what are some of the most like common things that you guys are treating, and maybe we can start from the orthopedic realm right now, and then we can branch out to other areas.
Yeah. So again, just to reiterate, the FDA has approved 14 indications.
Okay.
We primarily focus on the off-label side. While there's strong research for that, there still is more determination that the FDA has to do in order to approve them as indications of use. So we're cash-based, non-insurance focused to be able to provide access to all those other conditions. Those conditions are most prominently athletic recovery and injury. So if someone had a soft tissue injury or something like that, they're using it as a post-injury recovery tool. For longevity purposes, there's a whole host of longevity, quality of life benefits. But even more acute injuries like concussions, post-surgical recovery, post-orthopedic surgery in particular. And then there's some chronic conditions as well, long COVID, chronic Lyme, that we've seen a lot of great outcomes with patients. And there's emerging research also to suggest its benefit. But specifically on the orthopedic side and the injury side, again, Dr. O'Malley does foot and ankle surgeries for all his Achilles surgeries or any sort of foot surgeries. Yeah. He's putting them in 2 sessions before the surgery and 3 sessions after. And if you were sitting here right now, he'd say it's some of the best outcomes that he's seen post-surgery. Not only in healing quality, healing time, but return to sport, especially return back to normal life. And we see the same thing with any sort of like ACL tears or soft tissue injuries, even just delayed onset muscle soreness between heavy workouts. We work with some athletic teams who will introduce this as a part of a recovery regimen.
Okay, and like you kind of answered this question already, but just to like really spell it out for people, is this just for athletes and injured athletes, or can this benefit everyone? There's
a wide range of individuals who it can benefit from. Certainly athletes is one population that can benefit from for a specific set of reasons, but anybody who's dealing with those neurological conditions, chronic conditions like chronic Lyme and long COVID, even people who are just looking to get an edge in their daily life, if you have a high stress life, or you have maybe a little bit of cognitive clarity that you're looking to obtain, there's a good wellness regimen that Hyperbaric can help with.
Amazing.
So I have a question, because I've heard about like other approaches, like other hyperbaric treatment options. You might see some of them like where it's the equipment itself to me is a little bit questionable because it almost looks like it almost looks like a bouncy house, like in terms of like I'm trying to describe it, right? Because it's like it's either like a big pillowy cushion, something that it inflates up that's and then you sit in this tube or whatever it is you want to call it. And I'm just trying to figure out if there is really a huge difference between what you guys are offering from the equipment and the setup versus those type of treatments. And also, I'm going to add on a little bit too, isolated hyperbaric treatments. So just like, I don't know, area, joint specific, like, is there a difference to that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, those are all great questions. And honestly, as I mentioned earlier, with the awareness that's starting to happen with hyperbaric, it also can start to create some confusion because there's a lot of options out there. And to answer your question, there is definitely a difference between different types of chambers, and also the providers who are kind of leading through protocols, as I mentioned, is really important. Hyperbaric's not a one and done service. Hyperbaric is best done through the compounding effect of that treatment and in a sequence or a protocol at the right frequency. That can be 3 to 5 times a week in some cases. Right. But there are soft shell chambers, as you mentioned, which are typically fabric chambers. They zip up and they're lower pressure. And then there's hard shell chambers like what we use at MD Hyperbaric, which are FDA cleared chambers. They get to much deeper pressures, greater pressures. And that's where all the vast majority of the therapeutic benefit is. All the research has been done at pressures of 1.5 and greater, whereas the soft shells get typically below 1.5, not as high. So where pressure really matters, the hard shell chambers typically get to a higher pressure. Even with that, there's so many knockoffs of different types of chambers that have emerged. Really, you should be looking for a place that has FDA cleared chambers. Those are the most rigorously tested chambers and have the highest safety profile, and also are compliant with all the codes and standards.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me, you know, because I really do look at these things and I'm like, it really does look like, like a bouncy house.
Yeah.
And how do you insulate? How do you provide enough pressure?
Yeah.
And things like that to really optimize the treatment. So you know, that really does help, like, you know, being able to like discern between the two.
And again, I think it doesn't mean that there's absence of benefit in those lower pressure chambers. I think the encouragement is do some research on the type of condition that someone's looking to see benefit from with hyperbaric, and I think most consumers will find that all the research is at these higher pressures than what the soft shell chambers can provide. You know, that being said, I think best to speak with a doctor, or, you know, we're happy to put somebody through a consultation to best learn more about what their goals are. But there is certainly a therapeutic difference between the bouncy house that you've described and the hard shell clinical chambers.
The submarines.
Yes,
Call them.
they're literally designed to submarine construction standards. Yeah.
Okay, that's what they
Again,
look like.
more parallels with diving.
Yes.
They're submersibles. They're designed as you would expect with submarines going down to pressure in deep sea water.
Yeah.
It's the same design for a hyperbaric chamber. And that's not to be intimidating, right? They're just well designed in order to ensure the safety of the patient.
Right. Which I would feel much more safe in a submarine than a bouncy house.
Yeah.
So that's good. Is there any condition where you're thinking maybe you shouldn't do a hyperbaric therapy right away, or not at all even?
I think there's certainly some relative and absolute contraindications, as with most medical services. There's always some, you know, thought process into the risks presented within someone's health history. You know, if someone has had a pneumothorax or a collapsed lung, then they shouldn't be doing hyperbaric. You know, if they're pregnant, they shouldn't be doing hyperbaric. There's a couple of other things as well that will work specifically with the patient to understand their history of stroke and other things. Those are really the things that would preclude somebody from potentially doing it, where it could cause harm to them. Otherwise, hyperbaric is a very well tolerated and safe treatment. Again, it's pressure and air and oxygen, so there's not a ton of side effect when it comes to those two main elements. It can be beneficial in a host of different conditions, and you know, we would encourage somebody to do some research and also, you know, learn a little bit more about specifically how it could benefit them.
Got it. And then kind of piggybacking off of that, are there any side effects that someone could expect after doing hyperbaric treatment?
The most prominent one that someone would potentially expect, which is also with the right operator, you know, we do a lot of screening and education with patients so to mitigate any side effects.
Yeah.
The most common one would be if someone couldn't equalize their ears. You know, if you've ever had the experience where you're diving or you're up in an airplane and you're like, or if you've had little babies who are in airplanes and they're crying because they haven't equalized their ears, it's the same sensation for adults if they're in the chamber. If you can't equalize your ears, it's going to feel some discomfort and you might get a slight headache for a short period of time that will resolve on its own. But we have technicians who monitor every single session to screen for that and also train patients on how to equalize. And, you know, that's the most common thing that might happen to somebody, and still the incidence rate is fairly low on that.
We wanted to take a pause just to remind you about a product that we love, Costa Rica.
Their line of olive oils, vinegars, and body products are simply unmatched.
Their olive oil is made of 100% Koroniki olives and cold pressed in southern Greece.
These olives are harvested early so that they contain a high polyphenol content, have a high cook point. This oil is the elixir of the gods. Actually, Greek gods.
You can try your own Costa Rica products by clicking the link in the show notes below. Now, back to the episode.
You know, just even for our listener to understand a little bit, Chris, like, can you speak to just like why oxygen is so important, you know, I guess in this, because like what's wrong with this? Like, I mean, I know it's the pressure type of thing, but like how does oxygen factor into like the healing process? Like, I don't know if that's something you want me to speak about about more.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts too. I'll tell you a little bit about how hyperbaric is different than just the normal healing process, because in most cases, wounds and injuries will heal on their own with time or with the right proper guidance and physical therapy. You know, oxygen is carried through the red blood cells to wound site, injury sites. what hyperbaric does under pressure, that's why the pressure is such an important element, is it's actually going to drive the oxygen not just into the red blood cells, but into the blood plasma, which increases the rate of oxygen that's being perfused throughout your body to the wound site. That's going to accelerate the healing. It's also going to be able to, ensure that there's a greater reach of oxygen to these different injury sites within your body. There's also sometimes you may experience this too, or have seen this, is that wounds or injuries aren't healing because of what's called hypoxia, which is a low oxygen environment.
Yeah.
So hyperbaric can help, kind of break through those hypoxic barriers with hyperoxygenation, extra oxygen that's getting delivered to those injuries.
Yeah, because I think, because injuries too, like in terms of like healing, right? They're very energy expensive. And so so they're just guzzlers of ATP and things like that you need. Just from like the benefits I think from hyperbaric treatments as well is like it increases your ATP, like you said, mitochondrial density, and all of those things as well to help supply that. Because, I'll speak for myself too. When I had gone through surgery, all I wanted to do was eat and sleep. And I was like, and maybe because I slept a lot more because I was just hoping that the next day I woke up, it was gone and done with. But I think it was just because my body just needed to recover. And so I think that's why, like with hyperbaric treatments too, like having that really helps supplement that, gives you a little bit more in your gas tank, I guess, to just like really like help the body mend and repair itself.
It's going to basically enhance the body's natural healing processes, right? It's going to infuse within your body more oxygen that will help the repair process either accelerate or continue the repair process that your body would normally be doing. And again, it can even help with those hard to reach or hypoxic areas of your body that may linger in their healing process.
Yeah. I mean, definitely with the vasculature and being, it's kind of like, very limited supplies. Like, I can understand why that pressure would help deliver that a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Help it along.
So I have a question for you as a physical therapist. What do you think, is important for your patients, your clients to know about hyperbaric, and how does it fit within the broader recovery scheme today of different therapies?
Well, I mean, I think it's such a complementary treatment to within the population that we work with, for physical therapy patients, so like I'm a big believer of it, because a lot of the things that we that we work with our patients is to all about like, hey, how do we reperfuse, right? How do we move you and challenge you enough to reperfuse your soft tissue, which is basically saying like we're trying to get the blood and oxygen, right, to those soft tissue cells to help them recover and repair, right? So to me, it's the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, but how do we? But with hyperbaric treatments, to me, it's like, well, we can get that going around the clock, or we can jumpstart that even more so, so that when you're not here or when you're not doing your thing, you still have that, little piece to add. I mean, not a little piece, but you have that piece there to help with that. So like in the perfect world, like for me, like if it's a post-op patient, we'd have a post-op patient here maybe twice a week, and then maybe like 2 days of hyperbaric treatment, or whatever it is, depending on whatever the recommendation is, but at least some other supplemental treatments along the way, right, to help boost that.
Yeah.
Because people don't really realize how important that is. It's like, well, I'm just going to lay here and stay stagnant, and it's like, no, that's not what we need. We need you to move something along. So why not find some, get those things? And I think it's a really great complement to what we're doing.
Exactly. Complement was exactly the word I was thinking of. Is as with all sorts of health and recovery, methods, it's typically this ecosystem of things that you have to do, right? Move your body, eat well, drink, hydrate well.
That's right.
And so this is a complement to a part of a recovery regimen, rather than just being a solve for it, standalone.
Yeah, because we do have like an unlimited post-op package that we offer, which is it's a higher ticket item, but I can see it too being like where the hyperbaric treatments become really a big part of this as well, because there are going to be some people who I don't have any time to waste. I want to get back to what I'm doing, right? I want to feel better. What do I do? It's like, well, I think it really would be like, yes, multiple days of treatment, multiple days of movement, but then how can we complement that and supplement that? And I think it's huge.
Yeah.
It's a huge piece.
I would even say not even just on the recovery side, although we've been talking a lot about the recovery side, but even on the preventative and proactive side too. For you may have some clients that have a specific goal in mind that's an elevation above their current performance level, right? And that's both in a physical or endurance capacity or strength building. Hyperbaric can be complementary in the recovery process towards a proactive goal, not just in a reactive way of, okay, now I've gotten injured and how do I get back on my feet? It can be the thing that helps elevate you to the next level in your performance as well. We've had patients even here in our Manhasset location who have used hyperbaric in their marathon training and in their Ironman training, or even more interesting is they've come in for a different purpose, right? Either post-surgical or something, and they've said, I was coming for this, and I noticed that my mile times are getting better, or I've noticed that my sleep quality has gotten a little better, and they're seeing the holistic benefit. It's not a targeted approach; it's more of a holistic approach to improving your body's healing processes.
Yeah, no, totally, right, and I mean, it's just like, and that's like a key thing for us too. It's like we're not just treating like your knee,
right?
We're treating all of you, and so. Being able to, just to get the whole system on board. We're a system of systems, so it's just really like refining all of that stuff. How about the high-powered executive like you are? Right?
I don't know if I can fit myself in that category.
But any high-performing individual, and I'm not even saying like physically high-performing individual, but someone who's just a business owner, an executive, right? Just like how can they benefit from that as well? I mean, I know we've talked about some of these things, but is there something specific that you want to address and talk to?
Yeah, I think that fits more into that longevity wellness consumer as well, where longevity isn't just there's this whole talk about health span versus lifespan, and it's not just to potentially extend life, but the quality of life. And what we've heard from our patients is that, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but mental acuity sharpens, quality of sleep increases, which is really important for recovery, and even just being your best at work each day. So including hyperbaric within a healthy regimen for like recovery and just being your best, we've seen quite a noticeable difference in those high functioning executives who have a very demanding, neurological, position or something where it's going to be high stress, high strain. And not only is it great from a cellular level, but sitting in a chamber for an hour in total silence without your phone. We've had so many patients who just come out and said, I haven't been away from my phone for an hour in a long time.
Yeah, talk about digital detox, right?
Oh my, it's just such just a meditative state, and reading and just engaging with yourself, is in and of itself a really great benefit for folks.
Totally. I know. I joke around too. I'm like, because it's like, I deal with stress and things like that for my various like responsibilities, and I'm like, well, as long as I don't start losing my hair, I'm in a good place. So I kind of joke around. It's like, so will this like help me maintain my head of hair?
Yeah. Funny you should say that. There are more and more patients coming in for post-hair transplants. Not saying that's you. Not saying that's you.
I'm not a client right now. No.
If you start fucking
We're not breaking news here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's right. But we talk about the healing process, right? Even that type of treatment, it's been very complimentary for hair transplants.
Yeah.
So something that, if that day ever does come, you know with a regimen now.
I'm crossing my fingers it doesn't, but from the cosmetic realm too, right? Like, I mean, you're even talking about like elective plastic surgeries.
Yes.
All of those things too, which I really feel like would benefit from in non-biased ways, like physical therapy, but also from the wound healing aspect too. So the hyperbaric treatments for plastics, elective or non-elective, type of stuff is really helpful.
Again, it all kind of follows the same line of wounds, both internal, external wounds, injuries, things where your body needs oxygen, it needs its ATP, it needs all these different functions, neovascularization, and all these different things to help the body heal naturally. Hyperbaric is going to help fill that tank, as you said earlier, and ensure that healing quality and speed is increased. And so on a cosmetic surgery side and the orthopedic surgery side, we see a lot of surgeons starting to recommend hyperbaric pre and post surgery, and they're seeing better outcomes, reduction in bruising, swelling, better, scarring, and just healing, overall healing quality has been improved as well.
You personally, how did you get involved in this whole world of hyperbaric therapy?
So, before MD Hyperbaric, I was in the wellness industry, just doing really kind of the popular modalities, helping set up a large medical franchise or wellness franchise called Restore Hyper Wellness. And, they were doing a lot of the conventional wellness modalities like sauna and IV and red light. And that was kind of my first really entrance into the wellness, and health environment. And I saw, one, how did the consumer interact and react to these modalities? And two, I saw, okay, there's a lot more opportunity here for people to, especially with hyperbaric, to learn a lot more about it and also deliver greater benefits. And so, Dr. O'Malley and I started talking about how can we make MD Hyperbaric more accessible to more patients across the U.S. because not only is awareness a real need, but access to quality hyperbaric clinics is also a really important need as well. Mm-hmm. And so that was really our kind of, our mission was to be able to create medically supervised, medical grade hyperbaric to as many communities as possible in the U.S. to provide as much benefit as possible.
I just want to if you can just also briefly take us through just what the process would be if someone were to come in, right? I mean, I know we talked a little bit about it.
Yeah.
Because, just kind of so that listener can just picture what that would be like when they walk through the door.
Yeah. So, we have to go through the intake process first. Yep. You have a consultation with our medical director. And once your protocol is prescribed, you come in that first day for a session. You're going to change out of your street clothes into center-provided cotton clothing. And you're going to have a nice, relaxing experience where you get to, go into the chamber. If you're expressing any concerns over claustrophobia, we can easily walk you through what does the process look like, and we have a whole protocol for ensuring that you have a comfortable experience. Then once you climb into the chamber, you're going to lay down. It's a 7.5-foot long chamber, so we've had some of the biggest NBA players in our chambers and don't have a problem. And you lay down in the chamber, you can bring a book in with you, you can read and write, and most people, and it's an hour-long session. And so you're going to just be breathing oxygen throughout the entire session. Once you get to your pressure where you're equalizing your ears, then it's just like sitting in this room. And most people will nap or read and relax. And then after your session is done, you come out of the chamber, you change out of your clothes, and you can continue with your day. There's no restrictions. You might be a little bit hungry because your body's been doing quite a bit of work. Mm-hmm. But other than that, you can continue on with your day normally. Most people also report great sleep after their first session as well.
So I know you mentioned claustrophobia.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a way that that you guys would address that?
Yeah. So there's certainly levels to claustrophobia. Like there's some patients out there who will just not even be able to get into an elevator, right? And those are the types of. That's a very small subset of the population, and hyperbaric may not be the right option for them because there is a space that they have to be able to get into. But for the vast majority of the population, even with some mild claustrophobic feelings, claustrophobia oftentimes is about control and the ability to control the environment and the outcomes. Same thing with airplanes, people who have flight anxiety, things like that. So we have a very meticulous process of how we can onboard a patient who expresses claustrophobia. We sit them down at the foot of the chamber, the technician's with them the whole time. Mm-hmm. They have a walkie-talkie, they can communicate with the technician the entire time. Mm-hmm. If they're ever feeling uncomfortable, we can stop the session right away. But we sit them down, we kind of walk through what the process looks like. Then we can have them scoot back into the chamber, and we can just sit there and have the technician continue to talk to them as they start to regulate to the environment. And then once they're comfortable with that, then we can close the door to the chamber and they can just sit in the environment. There's nothing locked. They're just sitting there. It's not pressurizing and they get comfortable with it. So we take them step by step through the process. And we've had some extremely claustrophobic patients start out, end up doing 60 sessions with us because they find they're like, wow, this is my oasis. I love this. Yeah. And so it's just that early steps of really kind of overcoming that fear and also knowing that the technician's there monitoring you the entire time. You can communicate with them and we're here to support them through that whole process.
Well, I mean, Chris, is there anything else that you wanted to mention at all?
No, I think the biggest thing is, one, I appreciate the opportunity to be here and just have a conversation about hyperbaric. I think I love that you've both taken such an interest in hyperbaric and are curious to learn more. I think that's really beneficial for the industry and for patients alike to learn what are the options out there that are emerging, that are proven technologies that also can be beneficial for their health. So I appreciate this opportunity.
Oh yeah, no, we totally appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, and then beyond that, I would just say I encourage patients, if they're curious, to do their own research on it. Feel free to reach out to us at MD Hyperbaric, and we'd be happy to kind of walk through what the experience is like and what the process is like. And you can come tour one of our 13 clinics as well. But again, I think the more education that is out there about hyperbaric, the more that people can start to learn and potentially get access to something that could benefit them or a loved one.
Sure.
So we have 2 surprise questions.
Okay, great. I love it.
It's real light.
Yeah,
So.
it's not like, and what's your biggest fear?
Yeah. Oh God. Interview questions.
So our first question is, when do you feel like you're most in your element?
That's a great question. I feel like I'm most in my element when the people around me feel supported. When people around me, and it's everybody. It's my family. It's my coworkers, my team. It's my wife. I feel like I'm my best when I'm able to pour into others, and and I, not in the way to receive back, but more in the way to feel like they feel supported by me, and I can be there for them. That's when I feel like I've made my best contributions as a man and best contributions as a friend, a coworker, and a husband.
All right, so yeah, this one's a lot easier. Okay.
Okay, cool.
So the second
Start with the hard one.
Yeah, right.
Get that one out of the way.
Yeah.
So the second question is like around here, Jordan and I, we talk about like the perfect song, right? So it could be for any reason. So we ask all of our guests too, like off the top of your head, right? What would you say is your perfect song?
Oh. Should the song describe something, or just like my favorite song?
It could just be your favorite song.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And you can give multiple
This is a harder question than the first question. Oh, man. Okay, well, I'm first of all, I'm going to totally steal an answer from a CEO and mentor of mine that I worked with before. His was One Man Band. Do you know that song?
I'm so bad with titles, but if I start to hear the tune, I'm like, oh, I knew that one.
It's a great one. It just talks about, I don't want to be a one-man band. Like, I don't want to be, basically just for myself. I want others to be along with me on the ride.
Do you know who that's by?
I'll get you the name. I wish I could.
Probably drop in the show notes.
Yeah. I should know that.
That's okay.
Let's see, what else? I don't know. There's a lot of different, I think, songs that resonate with me. I also have a very diverse music catalog. I'll tell you what, I scan my like Spotify Wrapped is anything from like hip hop to like worship music to country.
Wow.
There is a wide range of things. So depending on my mood, I'm either like driving to the gym at 5 a.m. like pumping some hip hop, ready to go, or I'm like, I need to do some introspection to listen to some worship. So, there's no perfect song for me. I think depending on what needs to lift me up at that moment or the environment, I kind of bounce around categories. Okay, I used to say there was, no genre off limits, and I do think I'm starting to age out of some genres, but I'm starting to feel like the old person who's like out of touch with the music that's coming up.
But that turns around actually. Like if you I don't know if you have any kids at this point, but if you do have kids, it's like you start listening to the music that your kids listen to, and you're like, oh, I can dig that, I can understand that. And
listen, I've heard the Moana soundtrack more than I care to know, so there's probably some things I could do without again.
Oh, but I don't know. I mean, that you're welcome. But, I mean, that's a great song.
I'm singing it in the car by myself. My kids aren't even in the car.
That's definitely on my playlist on Spotify. So
yeah, it's on. I think I was a top 1% listener of those songs. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It was like, where are my songs? These are my kids' songs out here.
Yeah, love it.
So yeah, a little bit of all of the above. I know that's not a great answer, but
hey, it's all good. We got the one man band though. That's what we got. That.
Yes,
so
that's a good one. Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, Chris, once again, thank you so much, man. We really appreciate this. Would you be able to also tell our listeners how they can find you, and contact you if they have any questions?
Yeah, mdhyperbaric.com is our website. You can learn a little bit more about hyperbaric. There's a lot of educational resources on there. All of our locations are listed on there. If you're local to Long Island, we have a location in Manhasset on Northern Boulevard at 1350 Northern Boulevard. We would love to welcome you and give you a tour, tell you more in person about MD Hyperbaric. And otherwise, you can follow us on socials at MD Hyperbaric.
Perfect.
Awesome. So, guys, we hope you appreciate this episode as much as we did. We appreciate your time, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Perfect.